Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you happen to be watching this. Hope you're having a great day. Today I want to go over the Indianapolis 500, and as the subtitle says, more good, great, bad, and ugly to consider for Collis's narrative essay assignment. And again, the Indianapolis 500 is one of the podcasts or essays that John Green wrote in the Anthropocene Reviewed, and we're just going to use it as a model for a narrative essay. As always, for the YouTube bots, all borrowed images and quoted text are used for educational purposes. This video is not made to make money, it's just to help my students write some better essays. Have a big idea right at the start. Early in the essay, he says, "It's my experience that almost everything easy to mock turns out to be interesting if you pay closer attention." I think that this is a huge idea. And off to the right, you have three things that are easy to mock. Maybe four. Let's start with four. The whole idea of the generations and the idiosyncrasies of each generation, I think, is and ought to be easy to mock. I have met a lot of millennials who don't fit the millennial stereotype. I've met a lot of Gen Xers who don't fit the Gen X stereotype. And although a lot of boomers do, a lot of boomers don't. Second of all, it might be easy to mock boomers as a generation, but they've also got a lot of wisdom by virtue of having lived a lot of years. It might be easy to mock millennials as a generation, but again, there's a lot of hardworking, intelligent people who have navigated a lot of societal shifts that no other generation had to. And Gen X is navigating more and more shifts that's made it more and more difficult for them to deal with the situation they're dealing with. It's easy to mock all of that, but I think if we pay close attention, it's very, very interesting what each generation has had to deal with. Next, sometimes I think we try to get too cute. Sometimes I, as an English teacher, try to tell you students to get too cute. Green, I think, does an excellent job of saying, here's my thing. For more than 100 years, the Indianapolis 500 has been examining a question that is a serious concern to people in the Anthropocene. What is the proper relationship between human and machine? Since Green wrote this, that question has even become more profound and more important because we're dealing with AI. What is the proper relationship between human and machine? Because AI is still at the machine stage. It's a huge question, and he states it directly. There's no cute little segue, there's nothing. It's just, what's the proper relationship? Sometimes the direct experience, or the direct link, is the best way to phrase this. Next, he keeps going. I will, right here and right now, stress the caveat that's been throughout this thing. Make sure you can fit everything in the 2 to 4 pages for your assignment. But he talks about another big idea. The Indy 500 really isn't about going fast. It's about going faster than everyone else, which reflects one of my top-level concerns about humanity. We cannot seem to resist the urge to win. The idea of not being able to resist the urge to win, being a concern, might strike a lot of you as odd. You're athletes. Your job is to win. That's the urge. However, I think Green is implying that the urge to win is problematic if it becomes the urge to win at all costs, if it becomes the urge to win no matter what happens to the other person. Those sorts of questions are important. I talked about the Ellen Jacobs thing at the start of the semester. The Ellen Jacobs thing says value learning over winning the debate. Sometimes it seems we need to resist the urge to win so that we can gain something better. There's the caveat. Pick only one big idea. Man and Machine, 2 to 4 pages, you might be able to get a point in. Being unable to resist the urge to win, you can work that one in. And connect your observations to a big idea. Tradition is just a way of being with people, not just the people you're observing the traditions with now, but also those who've ever observed them. It's talking about going to the Indianapolis 500, the tradition of going to the Indianapolis 500. And then he keeps going on about they function as a kind of continuity. They happen. They are still happening. They will go on happening. This, once again, is a big idea. The fact that the tradition is connecting you to all the people who've ever observed them, that's huge. And the fact that they're going to go on happening, which means you're being connected to people in the future as well. Connecting those observations, you don't need citations, you don't need anything else. You're just making observations and putting together a pretty profound idea about the importance of tradition. Again, add a little humor. Add a bit of humor. It doesn't have to be a lot. I talked about exaggeration in one of the earlier videos for this. It doesn't have to be a lot. Next. Discuss the emotions of the moment. I'm going to put a caveat out here. Try to avoid becoming overly sentimental. Try to not become emotional as you're discussing the emotions of the moment. But discuss the emotions. Not only what did you see, hear, touch, taste, feel physically, but what are the emotions of the moment? I think that that's always an important element. And try to go beyond what Green does, I'm merely happy, or I'm afraid. Dig a little bit deeper. Here's one of the spots where perhaps you need to show as well as tell. Next, this is kind of a don't. Don't overdo the history lessons. For you guys writing the narrative, I think it's important to consider the history lesson in this state, the background material, the setup that you want to give your reader. Don't overdo it. Remember that the shape of the story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that the middle should be as big as, if not bigger than, the beginning and the end combined. At a minimum, beginning 25, end 25, middle 50. I think it's easy enough to say that you could have beginning 20, end 20, middle 60. The fact of the matter is all of this detail is probably a bit too much. So think about what can you take out. You don't overdo the background, or in this case, don't overdo the history lesson. Next, one of the dangers of doing a narrative is that we confuse the idea of an anecdote with an essay. And we just say, this happened. So Green is saying, hey, I was standing by a valet stand next to Will Power when the valet showed up with my 2011 Chevrolet Volt, and Will Power said to me, you know, I'm also a Chevrolet driver. It's kind of funny. The Chevy Volt I don't think matches what Will Power drives. But that's not an essay. The anecdote is kind of funny, but it doesn't tell you what it is that you need to know to make the big point. It's not a full narrative. Make sure you're giving a full narrative. You're telling a full story that makes a point. Next, Some of you might accuse me of being a bit hypocritical here, but I do think it's important to take a stand. And on a 2 to 4 page paper, you don't quite have enough time to be as nuanced as Green is trying to be here. I do think car racing accomplishes something. It takes both the person and the machine to the edge of possibility, and in the process we get faster as a species. He is seeming to say that this is a positive, that car racing is a positive, we get faster as a species, we're going to the edge of possibility, it's kind of good. It's pushed us forward, but it's pushed us in other directions, and I'm worried. That's a nuanced take. It's probably the correct take. You don't have as much time to be nuanced. I'm not asking you to be extreme. I'm not asking you to scream and shout from the rooftops that you and you alone are right. But I am asking you to take a moderate view and take a stand and hold on to it. I don't think you have enough time to be quite as nuanced as Green is. And also, Green doesn't tell us what these other directions are. And if he doesn't tell us what those other directions are, it's kind of tough to figure out why he's making the distinctions he's making. Don't make the person's head spin. Take a stand. I think that's about it for this one. I hope you all have a great day. Hope to see you all in class the next class period. I believe that most of you, that we don't have class next week Tuesday. So as a quick reminder, on Thursday, make sure that you show up with headphones because there might be stuff you're listening to on your computer. Have a great one.